Bien, regresamos entonces con el profesor Dean Karlan, con quien vamos a conversar sobre esta nueva forma de mirar la lucha contra la pobreza. Dean, thanks for being with us here in the program.
Thank you for having me.
Bien, you've wrote More Than Good Intentions, and the title is very suggesting. What else do we need for poverty alleviation apart from intentions, from good intentions? Do we need data? Do we need tools? Do we need what else do we need?
The short of it is we need two things. We need stronger theories as to what the source of problems are, and then we need data to test them. We need to we need to go to the ground and actually look at projects and understand what is really working and why. The why is what I mean by asking about the theory of what the real source of the problem is. We want to go beyond just saying this works, right? Although to some extent that can be helpful in some cases, just knowing something works. But it's always better if we know why it works, and because that helps us take lessons from one place and go elsewhere and say, well, this worked, and it worked for these reasons, and over here we have a similar problem, so let's use this solution that worked over here and let's bring it over here.
This is a new type of looking at poverty alleviation or poverty reduction. If we think about the economic science for the last 50 years ago, we weren't thinking about this. How did you come up with this idea? Where did you bring the method or the tools that you are using in order to fight better poverty?
So first of all, I wouldn't say I came up with the idea. I was an early adopter and jumped on a bandwagon that took off in full steam right when I was in graduate school. The one way of thinking about it is historically two things changed. One is economists long ago who were focused more on understanding what types of models of human behavior, of household behavior, of farms, of enterprise are the right models for understanding the process of development. But it was much more academic and theoretically driven, but theory without an immediate goal of a prescription. And then in the past 20 to 30 years, we've seen a lot of growth of small NGOs and also firms doing a lot of work for the poor. And that happened at the same time, or a similar time, as academic economists got very interested in thinking about how to apply all of these ideas, all of these theories that have been tested, and how to start applying them to be able to come up with a prescription. So these two worlds kind of collided, and then we saw a huge energy of a push towards saying, wait a second, we can use some of this academic rigor to do more than test theories. We can actually form prescriptions, and we can actually test out very specific ideas and very specific policies. So this really took off about 15 years ago. Was this intersection where a lot of development economists in universities got excited about the idea of working with government and working with NGOs and firms to put some of these theories to test and find out what's really working.
How exactly do you do it? Give us please an example of a social program. How do you make the design of it? How do you think about the testing, and how do you measure the impact of it?
So I'll tell you about one that one of the plenaries tomorrow in the conference that IPA is holding here at Universidad del Pacífico is I'll be presenting results from a randomized trial on a micro lender in Mexico called Comportamos. They're the largest micro lender in Latin America. And the basic problem that we find when we look at the way a lot of evaluations are done is that a typical procedure would be to look at people who receive some sort of service and follow them over time and see what happens. And the problem is that you don't really know, when you just follow some people over time, what caused the change in their life to happen. And you don't know whether their lives would have changed that way anyhow. Maybe there were just good economic times, and so they did better, but they did better not because of the lending program, they just did better because the economic conditions got better. Or maybe their lives got worse, and similarly, you don't know. Did their lives get worse because the program was actually bad for them? Or maybe there was just a really bad economic problem. Similarly, a lot of programs choose particular people. People who are going to be hardworking and entrepreneurial is a very common thing that we hear from micro-lending organizations. Well, people who are hardworking tend to do better over time compared to the people who are not so hardworking. So again, it's hard to just follow people over time, or even follow people over time and just compare them to other people in order to know how did this program actually cause a change to happen. So what development economics has become really big at lately is taking an idea that is near and dear to us in other facets of our life and saying, let's apply this to the fight against poverty. And that is the idea of running a randomized control trial. So right now, if we went to a pharmacy and we wanted to take a remedy for some illness, we wanted to take aspirin or Sudafed or maybe a prescription drug for some illness we have. We do this with the confidence knowing that there is some regulatory process in place that has tested out that drug and knows that it works. And it knows it worked through a long series of trials that were set up where 1,000 people got the drug, 1,000 people did not, they were followed over time, and that decision over who to get it and who to not was done through a random assignment process. And this is near and dear. We don't even know, we know it's happening, and we buy these products without reading the academic medical papers, but knowing that it has gone through that type of rigor. So we're taking that same approach to economics. So going back to the micro-lending, the way this worked in the study that I'm presenting at the conference that we're doing here at the university, we identified 250 communities, and the lender went into, and we randomly assigned them into 125 and 125, and then the lender went to the 125 that they were assigned to go to, and they started doing their lending. And then we followed people over time, and we compare the people who live in the communities that received microcredit to the communities that did not receive microcredit. And then we can say, well, what's the impact on the community from getting access and from this bank expanding their services into their communities? Same thing can be done, for instance, in schools. One of the early studies done was on deworming school children, where they took 75 schools and randomly assigned them to either get deworming pills for all of the children. Deworming pills are pills that help get rid of intestinal worms, which is a common ailment for children in sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world. In 25 schools, they got the pill in year 1. In 25 schools, year 2. In 25 schools, they got the pills in year 3. And so what they're able to do, because that assignment was done randomly, is they can look each year and see, are the schools that got the pills, are the children healthier? Are they attending more school? And they can do that each year, comparing those who have gotten the pills to those who have not.
Those who've not, what did they use? A placebo, I guess?
In that situation, no, because we're not testing the pill in that case. So it's not a medical trial in the sense that we're looking at the efficacy of that, and we're not concerned, for instance, that the improvement might be because of a placebo effect of receiving something. So there, in that situation, there is no service provided in the control area. They're going to get the pills in a year or 2 or 3, but it's just comparing schools where the children get the deworming pills to schools where they do not.
Okay. Many people believe that economics is very intuitive, that if you want to reduce poverty, maybe what you have to do is lend cheaper the money or give them more access to foods or subsidize water or electricity. From your learning and experience, is economics actually intuitive? Have you seen that most of the ideas that you got when you tried to measure the impact, was the impact what you expected before?
So two things. One is I have 2 answers. One is there's certainly a lot of questions out there where I can give you stories that are intuitive that go in very opposite directions. And so the question is, which is right? Going with lending as an example. There's certainly a lot of people whose intuition is that people don't know how to handle expensive credit, and if they get but they might be tempted by it or might not understand it, and so might end up taking, if given access to credit at certain interest rates, they might end up taking on too much credit, and it might end up being bad for them. On the other hand, there's a story that says, look, as long as things are transparent, there's the outside option for borrowing is even more expensive, and so lending to people through micro-lenders is good for them. It expands their choices. People can then optimize and make themselves better off. Well, which is right? Both of those can be very intuitive. We've seen similar work on pricing of healthcare products. Should we give away bed nets for free, or should we give away deworming pills for free, or sell them? If you sell them, then you can do it through firms and you can scale up more easily without needing subsidy money. There's also an argument that's intuitive that says that people will only use it if they pay for it. If you get something for free, you don't use it. It's, you're kind of more dismissive of it. There's another argument that says, no, people are not buying it because they don't have the money. They're so poor. And yet there's really good public cause reasons, public externalities on others around them, questions of redistribution and inequality that just demand that we provide basic healthcare needs to the poor. And if that means subsidizing it for free, that's what we should do. Both of those can be very intuitive. Ultimately, it's an empirical question. Which method of distribution is going to help more people and provide better improvements in social welfare? And so that's an empirical question. The second answer, so the second answer is that even if there was intuitions that were unambiguous in direction, this is good, this is good, this is good, this is bad, 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 and we could agree on this, and no one had any disputes, I would still ask you, okay, for the ones that are good, then how good are they? Right? So you just named 3 things in your list. You just talk about health is good, education good, and these programs, it's intuitive, it's good. Okay, now you have a budget, and you have to spend money. You can't put the money on all. It's not a magic money thing. They can spend the money on all things.
Even if it
looks
trade-offs. Obvious, you still have to measure to see where do you allocate more money.
You still have trade-offs across things that seem obvious. Which one do you put your money into?
Bien, vamos a hacer nuestra primera pausa y regresamos.